Welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. Today, Chad Blackburn joins us. He is an investor and an expert in sales, digital assets, healthcare, and tech overall. We're going to primarily focus on blockchain, Bitcoin, fiat currency, and we're going to put it into terms that kids can unpack and understand. And perhaps most importantly, how we might prepare for a looming debt crisis. So, you're not going to want to miss it. Let's go. Chad Blackburn, welcome to the Programming Lines podcast. We're excited to have you on. We have seen you on a number of podcasts and panels talking about blockchain, Bitcoin, currency. And so we thought this could be a really cool opportunity to pick your brain and get some expertise in this area because it's something that really impacts not only all Americans, but especially the next generation. And so these boys are Gen Alpha. And the decisions that we're making today and how people are thinking about all of this is obviously important. And so we wanted to get into all that with you. But before we do, could you give us a minute about yourself and kind of what led you to get into this area of topics?
Matt, thanks for having me. When it comes to the Bitcoin part of my life, my journey really starts with, a part of my upbringing was personal finance. In fact, when I did chores as a little kid, if it was anything above and beyond and it was like a paid job, I actually had to create invoices and give those to my mother. She would pay them. I would then mark that paid and I had a receipt I would give her. So personal finance and small business and all of that stuff was always a part of my life. And so I was very involved in how I saved money and how I invested money. In fact, even when I was a little kid, I had a mutual fund. And my mom had a deal with me because she was kind of like my employer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, guys, this doesn't exist a whole lot anymore, but Matt will remember when you could get a dollar for dollar match on your 401k, right?
Yeah.
So there was a mutual fund that we had set up and she did a dollar for dollar match.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So I was highly incentivized to start saving money, to start investing, and to start making money as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that foundation has just set me up to be very attuned with what's going on with how I store my time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, I started to get really nervous about public equities, and especially my concentration in public equities. I really thought, and guys, public equities are your stocks, right? So that's like the Apple stock, the Nvidia stock,
yep,
that type of stuff. And I thought I was super diversified, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I had a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there. And I came to understand that I actually was super exposed to external volatility and things like that. And so at that point, I started seeking out how could I actually invest in and own a commodity, something that was tried and true, that nobody could take from me. And so I started looking at gold and I started looking at gold stocks. And you really can't self-custody, which, guys, self-custody means keep at your house, right? Keep it on you.
Yeah, not much gold, right?
It's really difficult to do, right? I mean, and somebody can come and steal it at any point in time. And so I like to say I was primed and ready. And so once I started learning about Bitcoin, I immediately picked it up because I was already kind of there to begin with. And as you learn more about Bitcoin, it is so fascinating, and its impact, its potential impact, and its impact to date is so powerful. It really is captivating. It's something that you want to start learning more about. And so I really went down that rabbit hole and started to just build up a really strong knowledge base on that and have had a lot of fun doing it. Yeah, it's worked out really well.
Well, great. Well, we're talking to the right guy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I can see you have like a Bitcoin thing behind
That's
you
right.
on that
A little
lamp thing.
over my shoulder just to remind people. Little signal there.
I love the story of how your mom incentivized you through this program. We should think about something similar. So the boys have brought up a lot of curiosity, not only about Bitcoin, but investing. And so we're working through some of that ourselves in terms of incentive structures to get them to save and embrace that delayed gratification of saving.
All right. So I have a question about, national debt, first of all.
Okay.
Like, how concerned should we be about it?
Yeah. So, guys, I think we should be extremely concerned about the national debt. I don't know that we need to panic about that. Not that it's not panic worthy, but really what you need to do is what you can and prepare yourself. The national debt is what, like 34, $35 trillion. It's
Yeah,
growing
around that.
faster than we can innovate, and so this really does cause a problem for you all, cause a problem for me and Matt and really everybody. But the further this can get kicked down the road, the worse it's going to be. And somebody's going to have to deal with that at some point. And so it matters to start learning about how you manage your finances and manage your own personal family operation in the case that there is something that goes wrong with how we're able to manage the national debt. And at some point that
Mhm.
will happen. We will have to deal with that. And I hope that it's a peaceful situation.
To your
Um,
point, it almost seems like it's politically unpopular to deal with it because it's going to take pain, right?
mhm.
In terms of cutting budgets and building a surplus to get it down. And I don't see really either side of the political spectrum taking a hardcore
Right.
opportunity to
Yeah,
do that.
it takes
Mhm.
stewardship, it takes truth telling, it takes preparation of people that are going to need to lead us through that time. Not to be a victim of the system, but to be somebody that can actually be a part of the solution, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
Mhm.
that is what we're trying to raise, our family to be.
right,
Yeah.
right. And well, perhaps some of what we'll get into here today is, well, how do we prepare for that potential looming disaster? But without further ado, I think
Yeah.
Will, you had another question.
So I was curious because I asked dad mainly about this, and he had a very terrible description of it because he's not very good
Doesn't
at vocab.
come on.
But other than that part, I'm gonna ask you because you're a professional at this, I'm pretty sure, basically. So, what exactly is a fiat money system, and why should we use it? And are there like any downsides, like maybe we shouldn't use it possibly?
Or alternatives.
Yeah, yeah. So typically, a money something to for something to be called a money, it has to meet certain requirements. And one of those requirements is that the properties have to be rooted in the laws of nature, which of course, and the one who creates the laws of nature is God.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side of that, the word fiat means let it be so. So it's money by decree, not necessarily by the natural value of whatever the substance is that's being used as money. And there have been many forms of money, some that we still use today, like gold and precious metals and salt and other things that can be traded as a commodity, right? Many
Mhm.
of those things have been used as a day-to-day money.
Now
But
it's
as you can
paper.
imagine, using commodities as a day-to-day money is actually a pretty difficult thing, especially if you've got a bushel full of apples and you need a cow, right?
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
yeah,
gotta you gotta find somebody to be willing to make that trade with you. So in order to solve that problem, you can actually build, and this is where it gets very nerdy. And Matt,
okay,
tell me if
Yeah.
I'm going
we're
too
ready.
deep on this, but you can build accounting systems that sit on top of the commodity that make it easier to
Mm,
do trade, right? And
Mhm.
so in the United States, the commodity was always gold,
mhm.
right? And then the accounting system that sat on top of that was the US dollar, right?
Paper.
The paper money that you sit on top of that. And you see each one of those paper monies have a serial number on them, right? That means it's a unique number that only that piece of
Mhm.
paper has.
Mhm.
And that creates an accounting system that's enforced by the federal government of the United States of America. And so that helps the world do business with each other. And it's something that you need. Now, when you get into the fiat side of things, that's when you remove the commodity aspect to the money. So effectively, you debase the money and
Right.
you just say that this is money because it is money. Now, in the case of the United States, what we did was we started borrowing against the future productivity of future generations of children. And so that means that the federal government
You guys.
started taking out
Yeah. What is
loans
it?
with my name on it and your name on it. And they started selling those loans to everybody all across the globe. And they said, don't worry, we're good for it because
Mhm.
Max is good. Max is going to be smart. I know
That's right. Max is going to produce a lot. He's good for it, right?
He's going to be good for it. That's the behavior that a fiat system incentivizes. I challenge you guys to look up a video. It's fascinating. It's called the Stanford Marshmallow Test. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, I've seen this.
What?
I've seen
Okay,
this.
you've seen this.
Yeah.
What
Okay,
happened?
so it's an experiment where the experimenter puts a big marshmallow in front of a 5-year-old child and tells
Mhm.
the child that if they can not have a bite of that marshmallow while they leave the room for 5 minutes,
Mhm.
they'll get 2 marshmallows when they come back, right? And very few, if any, children ever make it the whole 5 minutes without starting to taste the marshmallow, even though they
Mhm.
would have gotten a whole second marshmallow, right? And there's big lessons in that idea of the Stanford Marshmallow Test. But I bring that up because when a government has the ability to print its own money, it creates an
Yeah.
impossible, insatiable test
Yeah.
that very few individuals can ever pass. Whether you're on the good side or you're on the bad side, it creates a situation where everybody has to figure out how to print the money and give
Mhm.
it to the people on their side because
Mhm.
that money printer is going to be running regardless. That is what happens to every fiat money. So the United States is not the first country that's tried a fiat money experiment. And if you look up famous fiat money experiences through documented history, you'll see that they all end the exact same way.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's in calamity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's
not
not
good.
Yeah, I
good.
think it was, I don't know if it was the Romans, but they swapped out precious metal coins for wooden coins at one point, and then
Yeah,
it all kind of
yeah,
collapsed. And so
yeah.
I don't know, boys, I want to make sure you understand this. What Chad is saying here is that a fiat money system is based on a promise, like more of a promise
Mhm.
versus of like we'll pay you back versus a backed currency which has it's pegged to a specific commodity like gold or oil or salt, as he said. So
Salt.
could be,
Salt.
could
Seemed
be.
like salt was one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is a great segue then
Okay.
into our next question, right, Max?
Well, what are the alternatives of fiat or fiat? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, fiat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird
Okay.
name.
Fiat.
Fiat.
All right.
Fiat.
That's right. I'm sure that there's different ways to say that. Really, the thing that we're looking for is a sound money. And that's ultimately, it's not necessarily that it's about Bitcoin or gold or yapstones or beads or anything. It's really about a sound money system. So gold has typically been that sound money system, but the problem with gold that even the Romans ran into is it's very difficult to transact
Hmm.
in a broad-based commercial environment, especially when we're doing business with people all over the world. I bet, guys, even you are. When you hop online and you buy something, you could be touching vendors on the other side of the globe, and
Hmm.
that money flows across there, and a dollar's here, and it's a dollar, and same as a dollar there, right? And so
Mhm.
you need to be able to transact really, really quickly. So gold does not function very well in a digital environment. And really, what you need in a digitally native environment is a digital money.
Hmm.
Now, the problem with a digital money is that all things digital, or most things digital, they're easy to copy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Copy, paste,
Yeah.
copy, paste. And so, since about the 70s, when the foundations of the internet were created, researchers and engineers had been trying to figure out how to create a reliable digital digitally native money, and it took a really long time. In fact, it took till about 2009 for them to really figure it out how you actually do this in a way that also cannot be controlled by a
Hmm.
government, a corporation, or any individual. right?
Right.
Kind of like gold, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
gold, for lack of a better word, reports to God, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't just
Mhm.
create new gold. You can't, if you want to go find new gold, it's going to cost you a lot of money, right?
Oh
Yeah.
You're going to have
Yeah.
to go digging for it. And so that is what they had to figure out. And there was a group of researchers. One was called Hal Finney. There's a whole bunch of them, but Hal Finney, if you look him up, he was one of the main researchers. And then there was one that went by kind of a spy name.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah.
Is he like Asian?
Yeah.
We'll never
Oh.
know. I believe that in Japanese that translates to wise origin.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Oh wow. So he
Yeah.
really wanted to keep himself mysterious for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody knows where he
I
is or if he's a real person today. I think.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
of course Hal Finney passed away of ALS. So he had a
was ALS.
long-term disease. Yeah.
Wait, so
I'm
this like mysterious sounding weird dude name, basically no one knows where he is or what he is.
Mm-mm.
That's a good
Or if it's a
documentary.
group of people, if it's a guy or a girl or a group of people,
Mm-hmm.
nobody knows. Nobody
Yeah.
Wait,
knows.
wait. When did they know about this?
The late aughts, right? So
Mhm.
07, 08, 09, around that time period.
In some ways, this is actually an interesting part about the Bitcoin history, right? Because not having a single owner or architect of it is actually one of the maybe like beautiful things about Bitcoin versus some of the other
Mhm.
coins, right?
Yeah, it is. It is a beautiful thing about it. I think that if we were to discover who Satoshi was, it really wouldn't make a difference.
Mm.
I think the biggest person that would make a difference to is Satoshi himself, because he, she, them has a lot of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah,
And they would effectively be the richest person in the world.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
What if it's Elon Musk?
would be richer than Elon Musk. Yeah,
So
yeah.
like,
What?
wait, can Bitcoin like vary in money? Is it like basically money? Like one Bitcoin is like basically like a dollar,
It's
or
like
like
85,000, right? Something
Well,
like that.
More.
one Bitcoin is worth $105,000 today. Yes. Where did it get that price? That's where the free market comes in.
Hmm.
And soon you will learn more about the concept of the free market. But when people want something and there's a limited supply of that thing, right? People say, I'll pay a little bit more for that thing. I'll pay
Hmm.
more than you'll pay for that thing. So I'd like the thing. Right. And so that is why the price of Bitcoin increases, because there are only 21 million Bitcoin and there's never going to be any more.
Hmm.
And
Wait, isn't it there's like 21 million in people's current possession, or like does that include one that haven't been mined yet?
yeah, there are very little is still left to be mined of uncirculated Bitcoin.
Does it reach an endpoint, or the mining continues to
Does
get
it
harder, but it
does.
does reach like a 0 point?
Yeah, so the mining adjusts in difficulty based on how many people are mining at any given time, right?
Oh.
So that's called the
Oh my.
difficulty adjustment. The miners get compensated two ways. There's the uncirculated Bitcoin that they get compensated with, that's called the block reward. But
Hmm.
then there are the transaction fees from the last 10 minutes of transactions. Every 10 minutes, a miner earns the right to write information to the blockchain, and they also get compensated for that activity. And they get compensated, yeah, by transaction fees and the block reward. Eventually the block reward goes away, right? Because
Hmm.
it cuts in half every 4 years. And in the year 2130, long after, I don't know, maybe you guys will still be around, but that is when approximately the last uncirculated Bitcoin will be released from the Coinbase. Not Coinbase, but the Coinbase. It's a different.
Yes,
Wait,
yeah.
so
Okay.
you're
Mhm.
telling
wait,
me
so
that Bitcoin that it runs out eventually?
No, it doesn't. It's just that
Oh.
all of the Bitcoin starts circulating. Now, most
Wait,
of
So
that,
like you're
Wait,
saying
are
like at a,
Bitcoin minerals?
But making new
No.
ones runs out. And Max,
that's
so
correct.
Max,
Mhm.
do you?
You're
I
saying
think
like mining for it, and I'm like, what?
Will is more familiar with this than you are, I think, Max. But do you understand the concept of gold? Right, you have to go mine gold, you get it out of the ground,
Yeah, so
right?
that means you get Bitcoin
Yeah.
out of the ground.
So when they say mining Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a digital asset, and so it's built on a blockchain, cryptology. So mining that, you're mining it in a computer, basically.
Oh, I thought you were like actually like kaboom, you know?
No,
like-
no.
Max,
How would you find a digital
Uh,
asset in the ground, Max?
Max,
You know?
Bitcoin
I thought it
is
was like a
effect-
mineral, and then like you made it and stuff.
No,
Max,
no.
it's effectively a code, I think, of
Well,
like numbers and
maybe
stuff.
Chad, you can enlighten us on this. But
Yeah.
it's basically like it's a string. It's a unique
Well,
fingerprint
so
code.
let's even back it up, because
Mhm.
the technical elements will make more sense if you understand what the miners do. And of course,
Mhm.
the word mining it's a colloquial word, right? It's just kind of a made up word, but that's what we call it because that's what it kind of, that's what you feel like you're doing as part of the financial network, right? You feel like a gold miner.
Mhm.
But the miners are the only ones that have the ability to write information to the network or
Mhm.
to the blockchain, right? Now, the thing that prevents a miner from cheating the system or writing wrong information or trying to fake things out or really do anything that is not in harmony with the Bitcoin network is the fact that to participate in the mining activity, you have to burn electricity through a computer. And you can't create new energy, right? Energy is only transferred, it's never created. And so, since that is something that you cannot fake, that is the Bitcoin network's routing mechanism back to the laws of nature. And then, of course, the one who governs the laws of nature is God. And so, what it does is since you have to actually burn electricity, it creates a situation where the laws of nature reign supreme and the desires of man are once again thwarted.
Yeah, it'd be like
Yes.
if you only knew gold was at the center of the earth and having to dig there, it would become astronomically more difficult, right? Like,
Wait,
is that a way to think about it?
Yeah,
In Bitcoin terms, like the energy associated with getting more Bitcoin is so large that it's a trade off, I suppose.
wait, so can you create more Bitcoin?
you
Search
can't
for the code.
you can't really create more Bitcoin, but you can get paid in Bitcoin for doing the mining activity.
Oh,
Hmm.
Max, the mining is basically where Max, like you have a computer and the computer like through like it like very quickly I think looks through like a bunch of different codes, right? And then once it finds a code that's a right Bitcoin, that's a Bitcoin.
That's right. In the
Yep.
process of finding that code, you're required to burn a lot of energy, and energy costs money. And so it creates an economic decision that the person that owns that miner is going to have to make. Do I pay the money and try and participate by the rules, or do I pay the money and try and cheat? And then, of course, the cheating is so impossible that it becomes financially, I guess, irresponsible to try and cheat the network because
Yeah.
you'll only lose money. You'll never make any money. The network roots into the laws of nature through the miners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it bridges the digital realm and the natural realm.
How so how long is like an average or like let's just say right now, how long would be like an average like coin code? Like how many digits?
Oh, these are numbers that could stretch to the moon and back.
Like millions of digits?
Mm-hmm.
what if you just
Big.
Oh
guess?
my.
Wait, can you just like guess?
You have to have a really lucky guess for that.
Yeah, that's what the machines do.
I think you'd
They
have to.
get they get
Yeah,
really good at guessing.
Yeah. So now, and so the way that it is mined, and then there are people connected to the nodes of the network to, I guess, validate Bitcoin. One thing I hear from people is like, well, what happens if the internet goes down? Do I lose it? Do we risk that? What if we have a big EMP attack? And how concerned should people be about that when they think about Bitcoin?
Yeah, yeah. So our entire financial communications network is digital.
Mhm.
And it is far more fragile than Bitcoin's decentralized network.
Mhm.
It is centralized in a handful of hubs across the country. At any point in time, you could have a loss of service. You could have a government force. Let's say a government forced American Express to shut down,
Right.
or forced Visa to shut down, or let's say the hackers got in there and messed it up. So we already are digital, but we're
Mhm.
very fragile in digital. Digital is where you want to be, right? That's the only way that you can communicate at any scale in our civilization.
Mhm.
So what you want is you want a completely decentralized and redundant form of financial communications network. You want your commercial network to be available over satellite, to be available over ham radio, to be available over basic radio, to be peer to peer. You want to have permissionless access to the network, because let's say Kentucky's network is down, but Tennessee's is up, right? I want to be able to go over there and do that, and be able to gain access to the financial network. So if we were to have
Wow.
an EMP, the very first thing that would start working again would be Bitcoin.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
And to
That's
your
kind of
point,
cool.
and boys, I don't know if you fully grasp this, but what Chad means, I think, by decentralized is that it's not on JP Morgan's servers in terms of your cash or your money. It's it's decentralized throughout kind of like the entire internet.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that allows you to really like own your money without somebody being able to take it or restrict it. So for example, if the government wanted to, they could restrict our access to pull the money out of our own bank if they wanted to, right?
That'd be evil, but yeah.
Yeah, it happens. I mean,
Happens
it
all the
happened
time.
in Canada, like during COVID. Remember that when
Mhm.
they had truckers and they restricted their ability to get money because they didn't want them protesting in the city. So they
What?
can do it, and they have, and governments have done it. And then also you can take it to other places. So you could take it to, let's just say, a country that doesn't run on the same financial system as the United States. So you could go there with Bitcoin, and you could use that to transact and maybe open a bank account in that local currency or whatever. So it offers a lot of flexibility that way. Yeah.
So this is something that's interesting. You know what a communist is, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. The communists have something called the Communist Manifesto, and
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
basically a list of things that they believe in. It's kind of like the 10 Commandments for communists.
Yeah.
Well,
Hmm.
the fifth commandment, if you will, of the Communist Manifesto is the centralization of the banking system.
Right.
Because if the head leader is going to control the people, you have to control their money. And money is a form of communication, and it's also a storage mechanism for how you store your time and energy, the past value that you have added to any other individual in the civilization. So,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
Wait, so this is
So
kind of like a branch off of Bitcoin slightly.
Yeah, let's
So
go.
I'm just curious what you think about meme coin, and like mainly if it's like stable and like is it a good
Yeah.
option kind of?
No. No, it's
Really?
it's gambling. They're casino tokens that masquerade as digital collectibles. Yeah, it's just a casino game that people are
Really?
saying, "Well, I think that Lion Coin is gonna go up in value, so I'm gonna go over there, and then I'm gonna try and get out before everybody else gets out." It's a game. It's a casino game
mhm.
that's global and it's unregulated, which is why people love to do it. And then, of course, people that
Mhm.
either people that start the coin, they're the ones that take the money from everybody that bought the coin. It's a
Yeah.
scam.
Are they the are
Like Hawk Tuah
I
coin.
know
Remember,
like
guys?
she
We
got in
saw
trouble.
we
Is
saw
that
the
like
story about
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You can definitely go to jail for doing something like that.
do you think there's like any other good online options other than like Bitcoin?
No.
What is the key difference? So let's say meme coins or other coin. There's countless coins out there
Oh yeah.
that are also built on blockchain technology. But
Some of
what
them
is
are.
the what?
Many of them
Oh,
aren't.
okay. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
That's scary. Well,
You
what is
don't
the
have to be
main
on a
difference?
blockchain to be a digital asset.
Hmm. So what is the main difference between some of those technologies and
Yeah.
Bitcoin?
So from a technical perspective, they vary in millions of ways, right? There's all different types of technologies that are used and all different types of digital assets.
Hmm.
Now, if we're just talking about just the difference in these industry segments, right? You've got digital assets, which is kind of the top. Then
Hmm.
you've got a commodity, which is Bitcoin, and that's the only one.
Hmm.
Then you've got what I would call a crypto equity, which is like a crypto stock. And this gets a little blurry, but I would call Ethereum a crypto equity, right? It's a technical platform that's designed for people to create innovations on top of it, to build
Okay.
on top of this technical platform. A lot like MS-DOS, right? You could build on top of MS-DOS.
Okay.
Yeah. Except Microsoft listed itself through the stock exchange in the United States, right? So they're governed by those laws. Ethereum just created an equity out of thin air, and it was already out there, so the regulators couldn't do anything about it at that point. And then you have effectively the crypto casino, which could very well include NFTs.
Yeah.
Although from a technical perspective, I think that NFTs actually have far more use than they do today from a technical perspective and how you secure intellectual property rights.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, NFT. So, like NFTs can be also used kind of like collectibles as well. I mean, obviously, like with digital art and stuff, but it could also be used to do something like the title to your home, maybe, or
Yeah.
something. Is
Mhm.
that the kind of that's where you see more of a purpose built use for it?
Yeah, yeah, these things would be centralized solutions that would
Hmm.
be commercial centralized solutions, but it would create a much more streamlined way of representing who owns what piece of physical property using
Yeah.
a digital title. And the digital title effectively can have, let's say, 1,000 people owned a house, right?
Hmm.
And that house gets sold, all the instructions for who should get paid in that transaction are all going to be straight inside of
Yeah.
that digital asset. So you can imagine what that would do with, like, say, royalties for a song or a movie. As an end user, you could pay to listen to a song, and the rights holders of that song, the songwriter, the performer, the publisher, they could all get paid immediately. Yeah.
Wow.
So all the accounting is bundled in. Keep in mind, all of these things are basically accounting systems as well.
Yeah. I never
Mhm.
thought of that use case. So that's pretty interesting. I imagine all the middleware companies and middlemen companies out there today are nervous about some of this technology coming to fruition, huh?
If I were BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC, they're on Music Row in Nashville, I'd be worried.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I'll
Well,
think about that.
I have a question. So, based on everything that you have talked about for this podcast, what do you think is the most important, or anything that you actually haven't told us? What do you think is the most important for kids to know about?
Bitcoin is freedom tech, right? It rewards those who are thoughtful and patient. And, Bitcoin is money that you earn and save and use without anyone's permission, which is important to be able to have the money that you've earned, and to be able to use that without having to ask somebody other than your dad while you're a little kid. But you don't want to have to ask somebody permission to be able to spend your own money, because it's money that you saved for work that you did, right? That's
Right.
your time and energy.
Mm.
No one can take your Bitcoin if you know how to secure it. And that's very important, right? That it's very cheap and easy to secure. It helps protect you from inflation and the national debt that we talked about,
Yeah.
right? It helps
Hmm.
protect you from that. Something that a lot of people think Bitcoin is they think it's a get rich quick scheme. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a learn slow and grow rich path, right?
Mhm.
You have to be very patient. Ultimately, if you understand Bitcoin, you'll understand the world better. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's worth learning about.
All right.
Good.
Well,
I
that's
I like that a lot. And we've talked a lot about inflation here and debt. And obviously, there's a correlation of devaluation of the dollar and increased valuation of assets like Bitcoin. And I think those are some good advice. My last question for you is, as a parent with kids, what do you think tactically someone like me can do to help start securing our children's future in terms of diversifying and being ready for a potential looming disaster?
Yeah, yeah. Teach them personal finance skills,
Hmm.
right? Teach them how to operate a small business as a young person. Those are going to be skills that are going to help you navigate and help you find solutions as you become the solution finder and not the victim, right? Mental and emotional preparedness. Teach your sons to lead when others panic, and live by the Boy Scout motto: be prepared.
all right.
Well, I like that.
It's
I like
great
that.
advice.
Why don't we call it a wrap for this session? But we really appreciate you taking the time and
Pleasure.
allowing us to pick your brain about this. It's such a interesting and unique topic, and is growing in popularity and understanding among people. And so for kids to start getting a grasp of it early to everything we talked about, like, is really important. And so we're going to take some of this to heart.
The
Thanks.
next time we talk, I think the boys should have their own Bitcoin wallets.
Yes. Are there certain wallets or services that you would highly recommend for
Mhm.
people versus
Yeah.
others?
So for you there are a couple of places I recommend to buy Bitcoin. So Matt,
Hmm.
for you, River
Okay.
is a Bitcoin only exchange that does monthly audits. And then there's a service called Strike.
Strike.
I'm familiar with
Not
You're
Strike.
out.
Yep.
Yeah, not to be confused with Stripe,
Right.
right? That is also a really great place to be able to buy Bitcoin.
Strike.
Okay.
Now, for self-custody,
Hmm.
I like Blue Wallet. It's
Okay.
just about the most simple wallet software you can possibly have. And I'll teach you how to set that up in a kid-friendly way. My
Okay.
kids have their own wallets as well. Y'all can do that together. Make sure that
All
nobody's
right.
losing any Bitcoin, because
Yeah.
that really is at this stage in their journey, losing the Bitcoin is the biggest risk. And we've all heard stories of
Yeah.
people from the early Bitcoin days, and they're like, I lost 500 Bitcoin and I didn't even think anything of it, right?
Right.
Because it wasn't worth anything at the time.
Hmm.
And now that's a life's fortune.
Some of these wallets, they're single owner, and then some of them are, I don't know if you call it custodial or shared ownership. Is that right?
Yeah. So there are a few different ways you can do it. If we're going to talk about self custody, there's a couple of different ways to do self custody. There is what you would call single signature.
Hmm.
And keep in mind, a wallet is technically called a signing device.
Hmm.
And so it has the ability to sign an outbound transaction, which is what allows the Bitcoin to move on the network.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called a signing device. It manages the private keys, which
Hmm.
are essential. And in fact, the private keys are the bearer asset.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then there's something called a multi-sig.
Okay.
Usually people do a 2 of 3 multi-sig. But guys, have y'all ever watched a movie where they have like the nuclear keys and they gotta
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get in the special door, you gotta turn both keys at the same time?
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's multi-sig, right? You've
Okay.
got to have
Oh.
2 of 3 keys, and they both have to be present in order to move that Bitcoin.
Kind of like the
It
Mission Impossible movie.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, two keys.
And there's a couple of reasons why you would do that. And of course, a multi-sig key could be lots of keys, right? And you can set that up in a very sophisticated way. But the thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to leave your Bitcoin on an exchange, especially an exchange like a Coinbase or something that deals in crypto, that's involved in the crypto casino. I don't think that Coinbase is bad, or Kraken. I don't think that that's bad. It's just that if I were going to be leaving Bitcoin on an exchange, I would probably go with a Bitcoin only exchange. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. So, well, we'll keep in touch. We'll get these things going and set up, but we appreciate the advice and everything. And this was pretty interesting. So, we're going to dig more into this. Well, with that, we'll call it a wrap. What do you guys say?
All
Thanks.
right.
Oh yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming on.
Hey,
That
thanks for having me.
was
This was
actually
fun.
very cool.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.